Kajal, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm good. Great.
Good. Let's dive straight in because there's so much I'd love to ask. I think there's so much going on in the world, big stuff going on. And so it really fascinates me where are we as a society with respect to activism, campaigning? Has it almost, stuff has got too big for us as individuals?
I think we're in a really, really fascinating place. And for me as a campaigner, it's, I'm learning so much in the environment we're in, because I think what happened was, so over the last 10 years, we've had the internet kind of grow and grow and grow and become an everyday part of our lives. Yeah. And with that, I think that amplified and catalyzed our understanding of the systemic issues in society and how society just isn't inherently fair and equal to everybody. And I think the pandemic exacerbated that particularly. I think the pandemic put a magnifying glass on society. Right. And so there are these cracks in society, but actually the pandemic showed them to be deep, deep crevices. And so in, most countries around the world, the people most impacted by the pandemic were the people who are the marginal groups in society. So, the elderly, people with disabilities, people of color, women were more impacted. And so we've got this growing, and in the last couple of years, I think we've had a, expedited understanding of these issues. And now I think we're in this really messy place where we're trying to understand as a society, well, what do we do with this new information, this kind of awakening that we had? There's a tussle, I think, for power. I think marginal groups have never had more power and never wielded more power than they do now, particularly because of the tools of the internet and their voices being able to be amplified in a way that they never could be before. So I think we're in a really exciting, really messy, if you're feeling anxious and tired, it's understandable, because we're in the thick of it right now. So as an activist, I think it's a really exciting time, because I think it's history in the making. Okay. And I think what we're seeing right now is a redistribution of power, and we're not going to get it right always. I think we're seeing right now, on in social media, that messiness even happened within groups that would usually agree with each other. So yeah, so I think it's fascinating. I think it's an exciting time, and also understandable if you're feeling the weight of the world, because we've never had more of an understanding of systemic problems in society.
Do you sometimes question yourself and worry about the fact that opinions can be dangerous? I think because of, I suppose, from my perspective, it is the fact that as we all get more of a voice, and that as you've just said, does it mean actually it's he who shouts loudest, or whoever who gets heard, and actually it means discourse and conversation is almost ground down.
That is happening sometimes. It is totally happening. The he who shouts loudest sometimes is the one that gets heard the most. And that's one of the challenges in societies. It's like, how do the social media platforms and platforms like change.org give people a better way to have a dialogue, a better way to actually engage and speak up? Because I don't think the answer to that is nobody should be heard, because I truly, in the values that lead me and what actually led me into activism was the real true belief that we need to hear more people's opinions, and we need to hear from more people in society to create a better world. And actually, I think over the last few decades, as we've had more voices, more women's voices, more voices from the working classes heard, we are getting a better society for all of us. It is a better world in that case. But right now, one of the challenges is how does the internet work? How do we how do we actually, I think one of the things that I think organizations experienced over the last couple of years was social media behavior translating into the workplace, because we all went remote. I think sometimes we started seeing employees and staff actually lose this real connection and humanity in each other. We were saying before we started that, is actually the staff are actually wanting to go back into the office, because we need connection. We are we're animals.
We're social.
We're not artificial intelligence. We're not robots.
Yeah.
We do need that connection. But one of the challenges right now is that kind of the loudest voices. But I will say also that that's often an argument used to, and I'm not saying that you're doing this, but because I think it's important that you raise that question. It's often the first question I get asked when I do go to events. It's like, well, but what about the people who shout? What about the trolls?
Yeah.
And that is a problem, but it's also not a reason not to. It's also. Despite that, we are seeing great progress. We are seeing amazing movement on climate change in a way that we would not have done before. We've seen movement on racial justice. And the reason that all of that's happening is because of people power. It is because people are speaking up. So can I ask, because you mentioned about businesses and companies at the beginning of the pandemic, and kind of there's been a lot of focus on purpose as individuals, but also purpose as companies. Yeah. Are you positive about this, or do you feel that actually business has reacted to what people wanted them to be doing and that they're not actually going to deliver? Yeah, I mean, look, this is also because of that messy time that we're in. Businesses, institutions, military organizations are all being expected. There's more expected of them than there ever was in society. I don't know if you follow the Endelman Trust Barometer. Basically, it polls the level of trust that the public have in businesses, politics, media, and it's shown growingly over the last 10 years that there is a growing loss of trust from the public in their employer, in politics, in the media. They're trusting business more than they did before, slightly. But what it shows more than anything is that consumers, voters, employees are expecting more of the organizations and institutions around them than ever before. So that tells you, first of all, that, well, then as businesses, you have to respond. But businesses don't know how to do it because it's not what most of them were made. That wasn't their mission. And so in many ways, I have empathy and sympathy for why sometimes they get it atrociously wrong. Because it's not, I think that the problem is right now is that there's no guidance and there's no education for CEOs and chairs of boards for how do we navigate this moment. So I've actually seen it happen in real time with a lot of organizations that I work with and I'm on the board for. One of the things that I've said to many of them is the public and your staff don't expect you to go out on every single issue that's trending at the moment, because there is no authenticity there. There will be no substance there. And actually that can create frustration in the same way that silence can create frustration. And so as an organization or a business, you actually just need to take a step back, take a breath and go, what does it make sense for us to take a stand on? What is the purpose of our organization? What are our values? For example, doing an analysis of your organization. Who are your staff? I saw recently that Disney have finally spoken up in the US in Florida around the Don't Say Gay laws, because they actually said, and this is very unlike Disney to ever do something like this, but it's because they finally said, well, actually, if our staff are impacted, we actually have to say something. If it impacts our people, it's also how Salesforce engage in these issues, that they say, if it impacts our staff, then we will speak up for our staff. And that there you can see a business link. So the idea, I think the way to get this right isn't to create a whole new mission for your organization. It's how does the speaking up actually connect to your business proposition? And so how does it connect to your process, your purpose, and then getting the process right. Don't just make a statement.
So let me just ask one last question, which fascinates me. From your perspective, then, as an activist, kind of someone who created change, or for that business, is it driven by the employees themselves, or does it take the leadership to turn around and say, "Hey, we're going to engage more with the staff"? Which way round does it work?
Depends on who's listening, right? So if you're listening right now as a business leader, I would say take a step back and actually, what are you doing? What are your employees saying? What are your consumers saying? You need to listen to your people. If you're an employee and your business isn't doing anything, then you have got more power. You've got more power than you ever had before. I think the way that our institutions and a lot of the big weighty organizations that are dinosaurs that have been around for a long time, or even the newer organizations that have wielded a lot of power, the way that we're going to see them change is through the power of the people in the organizations and the ones that are consuming them.
And on that note, I think that's a perfect note. So thank you so much, Adi, for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Lovely chatting as always. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Nick.